Let's just see once it starts recording. Okay, great. So we're recording, so I'll get everyone to turn off their cameras, mute themselves, and I will invite Matthew Armstrong, the Academic Chair of Transportation Trades, to begin. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and with this presentation, this PowerPoint presentation, just let me know if you can see that, when you can see that. It's loading here now.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. And everything looks fine?
Yes.
Okay, so this presentation, this is one that I actually made up for a virtual open house that we had done for the transportation programs a little while ago. All the information that I'm going to present in this PowerPoint can be found on the NBCC website. So if you want to dive a little deeper into anything, that's where all this comes from. It's not like it's any type of, you know, hidden information or anything like that. There is some stuff in here about wages as well too, or expectation for wages if you ever become a RID SEAL, automotive service technician, or motorcycle repair technician. That information can be found on the RID SEAL website, so the RID SEAL endorsement. If you haven't heard that term before, essentially what it is once you sort of progress all the way through your education as an automotive service technician or a motorcycle repair technician or motor vehicle body repair technician, then at the end of that, once you've completed your 4 blocks or levels as they're becoming known now, then you receive an endorsement. It's what's referred to as a RID SEAL endorsement. And what that endorsement does essentially is it just qualifies you to work anywhere in any of the provinces of Canada as a licensed technician, with the exception of Quebec. But that's, so if you hear that term, if you weren't familiar with it, that's what it means, as RID SEAL endorsement. Personally, I'll just go right to the next slide here, which talks about me a little bit. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But so myself, I have been with NBCC for, I guess it'll be 3 years in September. I started out as a student actually through NBCC. I went through the apprenticeship route to get my license, so I didn't actually take a pre-employment course. I did apprenticeship, but it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. They're equally as good. There's not like there's really one that's better than the other. It just sort of depends on how you go about doing it. So I got my RID SEAL endorsement in September of 2008, and then I worked in the automotive industry as a licensed technician up until September of 2018, when I started working as an instructor at NBCC. So a bit of a broad amount of sort of different experiences for me with NBCC. So I've taught at 3 different campuses. I taught apprenticeship and pre-employment in Moncton. I taught apprenticeship and pre-employment in St. John, and I taught apprenticeship in Fredericton as well too. So there is no pre-employment program in Fredericton, but there is an apprenticeship program there, and I did teach in that. In September of 2020, so right in the midst of this whole COVID-19 thing, I ended up transitioning to this role as academic chair, and I've been doing that since. So essentially, my job as an academic chair is I manage the automotive programs, I guess, if you really want to sort of use the summed up version of it. So anything to do with a car at NBCC, I'm going to manage it or have some type of sort of sway with it or something like that. At the bottom of that slide, you can also see my contact information. So my office is in Moncton, but the transportation sector programs are in Moncton, St. John, and Fredericton. So I manage all those, but my office is in Moncton, and there's also my phone number there too, and my email address. So it's not difficult to find this information. I can provide it to you anytime you want, or I can provide you with this slide, with this presentation, and you can kind of go back and revisit it. But just sort of rule of thumb with NBCC is most people that work there, their email address is going to be either firstname.lastname at nbcc.ca or lastname.firstname. So that's just the way it's kind of set up, just sort of point of interest. So moving along into the actual programs or courses in the transportation sector, I can't really quite see that on my screen because I'm using some type of strange presentation mode. Okay, there we go. So automotive service technician, that's kind of the big one. Pre-employment programs are offered in Moncton and St. John. And the Moncton program is a little bit larger, but not too much larger than St. John. Both are great programs, have great instructors, classrooms, shops. It's a really, really good experience for the students. So when you take the automotive service technician program at NBCC, so what you're going to sort of get the foundation to kind of build your career on. You're not going to get too deep down dives into specific topics. Yeah, you're going to get into engines and suspension and steering and brakes and all that stuff, but it's going to be kind of a bit more of a generic approach to it, not any less informative, but generic. And the reason for that is because some of our students will leave school and they'll go to careers in dealerships. They might go to careers in independent shops or something like that. So if we were to strictly focus on, I don't know, we'll say Toyotas or something, then that would be kind of doing a disservice to the student who might go work at General Motors or something like that. So we try to keep things a little more generic and keep things kind of for all makes and models. And apprenticeship does that as well too. So any type of apprenticeship exam that you do, the questions, you're never going to see a question that's like, on a 2017 Ram 1500, blah 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 blah. What is the answer? You're not going to see that. It's going to be a more generic question. But that's kind of just saying that sort of alleviates some fears. Or if you had an idea of what you wanted to do post education, like where you wanted to work, I just wanted to sort of reassure you that you're not going to be shoehorned into only knowing certain things about certain manufacturers, or you're not going to know everything there is to know about engines and nothing there is to know about brakes. It's intended to be a bit of a foundation for you. So all that type of stuff you're going to be learning. Electronics and electrical comes into it, but then there's also the essential skills that portion of the program as well. So communications, you're going to be doing things like interview questions, how to take interviews, how to properly follow up with interviews. Writing a resume, that's an area that a lot of people struggle with, but so that gets sort of revisited and gets a modern look and a modern approach to it. Also, you're going to be doing math and science fundamentals revision, trying to get everybody sort of up to speed with where they need to be in order to move out into the industry and be a successful technician. Yes, unfortunately, math does play a role in it. I know that unless there's some people here that are fans of math, in which case I apologize, but personally, not a fan of math. It was always a struggle for me. It's something that we take in school, and then later on in your career, you'll kind of see why. You'll excuse me, you'll realize that it does come in handy. Maybe not as intensive as other trades, but we do use it. One of the other programs that we have is motorcycle repair. That is strictly a pre-employment program, and that is only offered in Moncton. It's a small class. It's a good program, and that would be intended for people who wanted to venture out into the motorcycle repair industry. Maybe you want to work at a Kawasaki or a Yamaha or a Honda dealer or something like that. You got a big passion for bikes or four-wheelers or whatever it might be. The motorcycle repair program, that's kind of what we're intending on doing with that, is sort of getting people technically and mechanically where they need to be to move out again to sort of then later on in life specialize on maybe a particular manufacturer or a particular type of small engine powered vehicle. So I don't know, maybe end up working on chainsaws at a steel dealership and not actually working on motorcycles, and you're totally cool with that because that's all you ever wanted to do. And motorcycle repair would be the program for that. In St. John, there is auto body and collision technician. Now that again is only offered in St. John. It's not offered in Moncton. It was historically at one point, but just because of interest and demand in the program, it's gone down to one campus. Apprenticeship is also only offered in St. John as well with auto body and collision technician. So I'm not sure if what you guys are registered for as far as programs go. So that's why I'm kind of just sort of talking about everything in a sort of a high level picture. But so auto body and collision technician, it's a good program if you want to do auto body on vehicles, if you enjoy working with metal, if you enjoy shaping metal or painting metal, prepping metal, that type of stuff. That is really sort of the meat and potatoes of auto body and collision technician. There is a lot of mechanical aspects to that as well too, because as you can imagine, if you work at a body shop, vehicle runs into another vehicle, chances are the radiator is going to be smashed. Chances are the air conditioning condenser is going to be smashed. Maybe even further than that, headlights probably need to be replaced. All that type of stuff. So auto body and collision technicians don't just specifically lay paint on cars or motorcycles. They also do a lot of mechanical work as well too. And if you progress through that program, again, there's 4 blocks or 4 levels. I keep saying blocks versus levels because they're doing a transformation where blocks are becoming levels, but they're essentially the same thing. It's just sort of semantics. But with auto body and collision technician, so once you go later on through apprenticeship and you start getting into level 3, block 4 type stuff, you're going to be looking at a lot of mechanical aspects. So straightening frames, determining whether or not control arms are bent, struts are bent, any number of things could potentially be askew in a car that's after it's been in an accident that you as an auto body and collision technician, you need to diagnose it, you need to determine what's wrong, and then you need to inform the customer and then do the necessary repairs as well. So you're far from just a guy with an airbrush in his hand just sort of going back and forth all day. You're actually doing quite a bit of stuff above and beyond that as well too. Again, if you want to go back and revisit any of the things that I have written on these slides, because they might be small or you might not be able to read them, or you just want to read them over again, all this information can be found on the NBCC website, so you can just go back to that. Okay, so breaking down automotive service technician, 2 paths, like I mentioned earlier: pre-employment apprenticeship. After successful completion of the pre-employment course, you're considered a level 1 apprentice. That is, obviously, that comes with the stipulation that you have to pass your level 1 exam, which you will be writing at the end of your pre-employment program. So after you do all your other course-related topics, you've done steering and suspension, you've done brakes, you've done electrical, and now you've moved on. You're at the twilight days of your time at NBCC as a pre-employment student. And what you're going to be sort of wrapping stuff up, then you're going to be moving into what's referred to as practicum or on-the-job training. There's a 3-week aspect of the program that's dedicated to on-the-job training, where you will actively go out, find an employer, you'll work with that employer or work for that employer for 3 weeks. The employer will give you a mark. After that's completed, you're successful. You've been successful with everything else so far. You've passed all your other course material, your tests, your evaluations, you're all good. So you come up to a review week where you're going to sort of go back over all the high points of the year, and then you're going to write your exam. And your exam that you're going to write at the end of your pre-employment program is going to be the exact same exam that an off-the-street apprentice been working at an automotive shop for a year. He's got his hours, he's come done his block 1 or level 1. It's the same exam. So after those exams are written, from a practicality point of view, you and the apprentice are now neck and neck as far as progression of your career goes. You're not considered any more valuable or less valuable than they are, and vice versa. That's where you're at. So you go through the apprenticeship program. You'll do an additional 3 blocks. Again, they're being referred to as levels now. And then you'll write your interprovincial red seal exam. That's the big one. And once you get that, I would show you my red seal, but I have no idea where it is right now. But once you pass that exam, you're successful with that, you get your little card that has the starburst, the red starburst on the back, not the candy, but the actual image. And it will say red seal endorsement on it. And that is that what you need basically to say, like, I can work in British Columbia and I'm recognized as a licensed automotive service technician, or I can work in Saskatchewan or wherever, it doesn't matter, in Canada, with the exception of Quebec. Quebec is the only one that doesn't recognize that certification. And it's political, I have no idea why. So program structure, no experience necessary. Industry requirements are met with a comprehensive curriculum. So you're going to learn everything you need to know to walk out into the industry and be a effective level 1 apprentice. Programs set up to cover everything you need to be successful. So you end up starting out on the more generic vanilla type topics, where you're going to be talking about tools and safety and equipment, hoisting and lifting. There's a section or course that's known as Start, Move, Park, which sounds kind of weird, but we kind of work under the assumption that and not just working under the assumption, but under the knowledge that there are some students that come into the programs that might potentially have not even driven a car before or have driven a car very few times. You go out into the yard to start that customer's vehicle that get dropped off overnight. There's probably some stuff you should check prior to just jumping in and turning the key and bringing it in. That's what Start, Move, Park is about, and it teaches you how to be successful with it. You get into more intense stuff later on, starters, alternators, any type of electrical stuff, steering, suspension. You learn not just the sort of the layman's version of it, like you get the actual scientific theory behind it and why systems are designed the way that they are. It's not just kind of like somebody just stumbled across this great design one day and they just started using it, and we've been using it ever since, and we've all lived happily ever after. There's a reason for that. There's an engineering reason why we use those particular systems and the applications that we do. You have to learn that, right? Because if you don't know, then if you don't know when to expect that noise, or why that vehicle feels the way it does when you're driving down that road, or why does it wobble quite bad, or whatever it might be, if you don't know the scientific theory behind it and the engineering behind it, you're not going to be very successful at diagnosing the mechanical nuts and bolts of it. So we make sure that you get that experience as well too. Brakes, engines. We have a really good section on engines, or a really good course on engines. Depending on what campus you're in, if you're in St. John, you're going to be probably either tearing down and rebuilding Hyundai 4-cylinder engines, because they've had lots of problems and we've had lots of donations over the years, or you're going to be donating Cadillac 3.6s, the GM high function engine, I think is what they call it. Pretty cool though, because V6, whatever, but it's as far as intensity with an automotive engine goes, it's got it in spades. It's a complicated engine, so it's good that way. And wheels and tires and everything else. So down at the bottom, wage expectations in New Brunswick, you're looking at a low of about $14.50. I would dare say that that's probably what you'd be expecting to make when you finally come out of school. Average is $20 an hour in the province of New Brunswick, and you get a high of 26. Obviously, your mileage will vary depending on where you're working. Some places pay more than $26 an hour, especially if you're like a shop foreman somewhere or something like that someday, then you're probably looking to be into the 30s. Moving along, because I see I'm chewing up time here with my big mouth. Motorcycle technician. So that, again, that's the other program. Like I said earlier, we offer in Moncton. There is no apprenticeship for motorcycle technician. What you end up doing after you take the pre-employment program is you just accumulate hours. So you work in the industry and you accumulate hours. 7,200, I believe, is the amount of hours that you need. Once you have accumulated those hours, then you're off. You pay your $250. You challenge your RID seal exam for motorcycle technician. If you're successful, you get the same card that an automotive service technician or a motor vehicle body repair technician would get. And then you're recognized in all the same provinces again as a licensed motorcycle technician. So basically the same thing, just you're working on bikes, small engines, small engine powered equipment. So weed eaters, outboard motors, that type of stuff, and four-wheelers as well too. And I mean, they are increasingly becoming more complex as time goes on. You look at some side-by-sides that we have now out there, and it's pretty much a car that's not legal for the road. So things are becoming more complex as time goes on. Wage again, low, $15.50 average. You're looking at about $21 an hour, and a high about 28. So pretty comparable to automotive. Again, your mileage will vary depending on where you work. Auto body and collision technician. So same deal, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to learn all kinds of stuff when you do auto body and collision technician. It is far from just spraying paint or, you know, banging out dents or putting down body fill. You actually learn how to do it right and make the car look good and the repair last. I don't know if any of you guys have been victim to this, but there's lots of people out there, myself included, that over the years we've been victims to some pretty bad body work. We need auto body technicians in the industry. So I'm very glad and I'm very proud to be the manager of this program. Students love it. They love their instructors, the two instructors that teach it, Bob Chamberlain and Don McKay. They've been teaching auto body and collision for like 20 years, I think, each. So, I mean, you got a lot of collective experience, and then you have to sort of put on top of that what they've done in the industry prior to coming to NBCC. So you got a lot of information to draw from. They're great guys, really patient with students. Don't worry, like if you're not, you walk into it with no skills, okay? So you're gonna screw a lot of stuff up. You're gonna try to feather an edge and it's gonna look terrible, or you're gonna lay paint on something, you're gonna see that nice big run dip down and there's nothing you can do about it, or a fly comes over and lands in the paint or something, who knows? It's totally fine. That's how you learn. That's what the program is for. It's not for experts. Like, it's for people that want to get into this industry. And that's why in all these I put no experience necessary right at the beginning of program structure. Wage expectations in New Brunswick, low 14, average about 20 bucks an hour. They say high 45. I don't doubt it at all, especially if you are doing custom work. Custom work, it comes at a premium, custom body work. So yeah, 45 bucks an hour, I don't think is probably out of the picture if that's what you venture into down the road. Then we have to include apprenticeship as well too. So apprenticeship is essentially the same curriculum that you would receive through a pre-employment program, but it's condensed. So instead of spending a week or 2 weeks on breaks, you're going to spend 5 days on breaks. And it's going to be very, very theory intense. The idea behind apprenticeship is that you, the practical side of your education, so the actual hands-on stuff where you learn to fix things with these, you learn that while you're working. And then when you come to school, then it becomes our job in that 8-week stretch or that 7-week stretch or whatever it is. That's when we really got to hammer the theory into your head. And you have to learn, okay, that's why I've been doing this for a year or 2 years, or now I understand why when this breaks that happens, or whatever. So it's just two different paths to the same objective. Not one isn't better than the other. They're both equally great. And it just sort of depends on how things go. Or what your plan is. Myself personally, my advice to someone who is sort of asking questions about becoming an automotive service technician or motorcycle repair technician or a motor vehicle body repair technician, excuse me, if you don't have any experience, if you don't know anything about mechanics, don't beat yourself up over it. That's totally fine. I didn't grow up working in the garage with dad or anything like that either. But I would push students towards a pre-employment program if they didn't have that experience. With apprenticeship, you really, the linchpin in it all, what you really have to find is an employee that's really, really willing to work with you. Because you're coming into it with no experience. You know, you might be able to change oil, you might not be, who knows. But if you find that employer, that's great. It can be difficult. That's why I'm saying if you don't have any experience and you've already registered for a pre-employment program, because this is what you want to do, good for you. You've made the right decision. If you got a little bit of experience, whatever, you're not too sure, going back and forth or whatever, yeah, then you got a couple different routes you might want to look at. So same thing, same salaries, not really any too big of surprises there, just sort of an accelerated program theory-wise, not time-wise, because the other specification or the other caveat that comes with writing that red seal exam is that you have to have the hours. It doesn't matter if you went through pre-employment or apprenticeship. You have to have the hours or you cannot write the exam. So you're not going to just go through a pre-employment program, never work in the industry, and think you're going to challenge your red seal exam. At one time you used to be able to do that. We don't do that anymore. You have to go through all the steps to get there. I'm glad to hear that. It's, in my opinion, just industry quality sort of being played out in front of our eyes. So is career and transportation trade right for you? The only way to know for sure is to ask. Reach out to instructors, recruitment advisors today. You can do that through the website. You can contact instructors if you have instructor contact information. I probably schedule all kinds of stuff if you wanted to. If you're still sort of a little iffy on it, on the fence, or if you're just that sort of worked up that you want to really sort of look to see what your experience is going to be come September, well, then you can probably get into the school, take a little walk around, take a look at some of the things you're going to be working at. NBCC is here to help and work with students that have requests specifically like that. I mean, that's why we're here right now, right? To give you a little more information about the program, to answer any questions you might have or anything like that. I know we don't have a lot of time left because I got the big mouth open and it's hard to close once it's open. But I do want to sort of open this up for any questions that anybody might have. Anything at all. Doesn't matter if it's program related, industry related, whatever you have for a question, fire away. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I'm trying to figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Okay, stop presenting. There we go. Okay, so like I said, anybody has any questions or anything like that, I'm going to open up the conversation on the side of the chat. You can type it in there or just fire away. You don't have to worry about raising your hand or anything like that. Ask away. Okay, so first question, do we buy our own hand tools? No, you don't. They're all provided. You don't. The only thing you have to show up with is steel-toe work boots, safety glasses, appropriate workwear. And then there's other safety aspects of that too that you have to go along with. You know, if you got the Mr. T chains on or whatever, you got to take those off, take your rings off, your watch off, all that type of stuff. But other than that, with your work boots, your work clothes, your safety glasses, I'm a big advocate of people wearing gloves, mechanics gloves, when you're doing stuff like whaling on a hammer, or if you're working with any type of like fluids or anything like that. I always really, really push students and other people in the industry to, sorry, I just realized my camera's off, to wear gloves. So that's another thing that you can bring along with you as well too. We got another question being typed here. How are classes going to work with COVID, time in class versus time at home? It's a really good question. It is kind of unfolding as we speak. We've been having a lot of conversations. The academic leadership team, which is what I'm part of with the college, what is the fall going to look like? So far, everything is looking like we're going to more or less have a return to the way that we did things pre-COVID. We are aiming to keep a certain aspect of the education or the program virtual. Right now, it's probably going to be a day a week, or potentially a couple programs a couple courses that you might be doing virtually. So we'll say communications or math. Is it 100% necessary to have you sitting in a chair in a classroom to do your math homework? Probably not. It can probably be taught virtually. So programs and courses like that within the program are probably going to still be virtual or have a virtual aspect to them. But what we're aiming for is a return to in-class theory education or in-class theory learning. And also, we haven't really lost any of this over the past year, but in-person, hands-on practical training. So you're still going to have all those aspects of the program, but there is going to be a little bit of flexibility, which is probably at the end of the day beneficial for you to have that virtual day or 2 virtual days, whatever it might be. It just kind of depends on the course. Good question, though. That's a hot topic these days. So I'm glad somebody asked that question. Does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, we got another one typing. No, typically not. Students aren't paid during the practicum. I think ultimately that might be up to the employer, but it's not something that the school promotes or pushes or anything like that. It's intended to be part of your education. So view it almost as if just it's like 3 weeks while you're in class or something like that. So no, typically students aren't paid during their practicum.
Matt, a question that we often get from students is how big the classes are. Like, how many classmates will they have?
Yeah, okay. So that depends on the program, but we could probably come up with a rule of thumb here for all the programs. Motorcycle repair is certainly the smallest of them all. Usually a typical motorcycle repair class size is like 11, 12 students. That would be probably followed by auto body and collision technician in St. John. They're usually running between, and there's only one class of that. There isn't like multiple classes happening, so you don't have like class A and class B and class C or anything. It's just the one class. That one's usually in the 15 to 20 range. It's been sneaking up towards 20 in the last couple of years, which is it's good. It shows that there's healthy interest in the program. But then also we kind of have the eyes on keeping the numbers down, so we're not stretching the instructors out too much over all the students or anything like that. We want everybody to get the same experience out of the program that they would expect, and we don't want to overload the program, and then that would be detrimental to that. Automotive is the biggest out of the programs. St. John is a little bit smaller than Moncton. Moncton is quite healthy this year. There's actually the other program that I did not talk about that I'm not sure if any of you guys are registered for or not, but is automotive technology. So there is a 2-year program as well too. And it'll probably become apparent why this slipped my mind here in a minute. But so typically your class size is going to be 15, 16, 17, right around there for automotive service technician. St. John, you might have a little higher, maybe 20 per class. St. John, there's 2 classes. They refer to them as the red class and the blue class. And they will sort of, their schedules will sort of alternate around each other. So when the blue class is in the shop, the red class is in the classroom, and vice versa. In Moncton, there's actually 3 automotive service technician pre-employment classes this year. We refer to them as cohorts in the college. And then there is a 4th, which is the first year of automotive technology. Automotive technology is a 2-year program. And that first year looks exactly the same as our automotive service technician program. It's indistinguishable. So from a practical standpoint, you'd be safe to say that there's 4 automotive service technician pre-employment classes happening in Moncton this year. Reason for that is if students want to transfer from automotive service technician into automotive technology, they can, and they still are effectively working on their career or on their education, I guess you could say. So they don't have to start all over again. Automotive technology, so the second year of that program, you go back to school, you get more in depth with stuff. At the end of that second year, you write your level 2 exam, and then you come out of school after 2 years being a registered level 2 apprentice. So again, you're still looking for those hours, but you're going to spend a little more time in school. And that's going to focus more on more technologically advanced automotive subjects, as well as there's some business aspects to it as well, too, creating a customer culture and things like that. It's really intended for people that want to start their own automotive business or something like that. It's a good program for that. That class is generally a little bit bigger. It's about 20. So coming back full circle to the original question that Kathleen had sort of proposed to me, between 15 and 20 is what you're going to get in your class. Usually closer to 15, but sometimes they do creep up a little bit. Anybody else have any other questions, concerns, observations? Any questions about the automotive industry as a whole? Any questions about working as a technician in the automotive industry or anything like that? No, not in the pre-employment programs. There is in, I shouldn't say that, they do touch on it a little bit in automotive technology, nothing too intense, because the reason for that is alternative fuels is a course that you end up taking in level 4, in block 4. Currently block 4, but will be level 4 as well too. So that's kind of the more advanced stuff. For the most part, with automotive technology, when they talk about electric vehicles, they're focusing more so on the safety side of things. So how to safely work around electric vehicles, how to safely service electric vehicles. There's disarming procedures for the high voltage batteries on electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles. Many manufacturers are producing them. They're all different in some way or another. So they do focus on the safety aspect of that as well too. But the actual in-depth techie stuff with electric vehicles, not so much, not until we get into block 4, and then it becomes almost like a manufacturer specific thing after that. So if you work at, I don't know, we'll pick a manufacturer that's got a bunch of electric vehicles, we'll say Hyundai or Toyota, they have a lot of electric vehicles. If that was sort of the route that you progressed down as far as a technician, then Toyota or Hyundai would provide you with that training specifically for their vehicles because of those differences. No, actually, okay, so there was the first question was, I see we got a few type in here. So do you pay to write your exam for each level? No, you don't. Actually, it is pretty beneficial for you from a financial standpoint. So you pay to do your pre-employment program. The cost of writing that that exam is all absorbed into that. But with apprenticeship, so as you progress through apprenticeship, you go to school to do, say, level 2. So what ends up happening is your apprenticeship officer registers you for level 2 in Moncton starting January 4th or something like that. Prior to starting the block or the level, you will receive funding through provincial government channels through Apprenticeship New Brunswick. That funding will be for traveling or living expenses. They will also provide you with money for your textbooks and ILMs. That's another book that you use through apprenticeship. But they'll provide you for money for that. You are able to draw unemployment while you're going to school. That's provided that the other stipulations are met, like you're actually employed prior to going to school. That's kind of an important thing for unemployment. And you also end up receiving money after you're successful. So it's a bit of an incentive program, but after you write your level 1 exam and you're successful with that through apprenticeship, mind you, but after you write your level 1 exam and you're successful with it, then basically the province runs and cuts you a check for $1,000. You go back to work and you would get a raise from your employer, or you should get a raise from your employer. You go back to level 2, same deal as before, draw unemployment, you get those checks, all that type of stuff. Really shouldn't cost you too much to go to school. Then when you're done level 2, you get cut that, you're successful with it, you get another $1,000 check. They get a little tricky here with block 3 or level 3, because they don't give you a check after that one if you're successful. But after level 4 or block 4, you get $2,000. So they cut you a check for that. So when you progress through apprenticeship, either after you've taken your pre-employment course or if you've done apprenticeship all along, financially speaking, they want to make it as doable for a tradesperson to get that red seal as they can. So those little incentive programs, it's not too much off out of their piggy bank, but it means a lot to the student that's, leaving a $12 or $13 an hour job to travel back and forth, maybe 45 minutes or an hour or something like that. They don't want people being sort of turned away or not able to attend school for that. So yeah, there's some financial help there for you. So it's all good. When do we find out what textbooks we will need for the course? So you'll find out prior to the commencement of the course, and it's not like you need to have the textbooks the very first day. A lot of students do, but what ends up happening is there's on campus in Moncton and St. John, so there wouldn't be any issues with you guys, but there's a bookstore on campus, and it is where you purchase the books. You go in, they know exactly what you need, how much they're going to be, right down to the to the penny, and you pay your money, you get your books, and away you go. So you'll find out about those in the build up to the start of the program, and then that'll give you a chance to purchase the books ahead of time. But if something happens that the money's not there, or you just haven't been able to sort of get those books to it's not like you can't show up on the first day because you don't have your textbooks. You're going to have more chances to buy your textbooks. So that's when you find that stuff out. It was at the very beginning. Okay. Does anybody else have any other burning questions? I think we must be pretty well set.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, Matt, I might just ask you one last question about last words on what your advice would be to be successful in these programs, and what you would say these students should come into the program in September ready to do.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put my dad hat on here for a minute, and I'm going to suggest that prior to starting the program, everybody needs to do a little bit of soul searching and realize that this isn't high school. It's not, middle school or anything like that. It's college, and there's an expectation put on you as an adult. So if I'm trying not to sound too negative here because I really don't want to come off negative, but just don't, make sure your expectation isn't to have your hand held and walk through the program. You're going to have to shoulder the burden. You're going to have to do the stuff at home. You're going to have to do, you're going to have to flip through the textbook probably daily and answer the questions. Make sure you do your work. Okay. Don't end up shooting yourself in the foot because you just didn't do your math homework. And then now you're not going to graduate. And now you're going to have to figure out something else. And now mom and dad aren't too happy with you, or whatever it might be. And now the bank wants its money back or something. Like, it's a long, dark, dreary road if you just start sort of procrastinating, not doing what you're supposed to do, or, I don't know, spending more time at other activities than what you should be. Maybe you should be concentrating your schoolwork. Just be your own disciplinarian and really stay on top of your work. Don't fall behind. If you do fall behind, or if you are struggling, it's very important that you don't make the mistake of just not saying anything, just letting it slide. Just saying, next week, well, we'll figure it out next week, or I'll figure it out next week, or I'll ask Keith, or I'll ask Brian next week, or whatever it might be. Don't do that. It goes by fast, and it's compressed too. Like it sounds like there's a long period of time. You know, you're talking, you know, September to June. I mean, geez, that's, you know, pretty much a year, right? It goes by really fast. So take advantage of the Student Success Week. So every 7 weeks, you'll have a Student Success Week where there are no scheduled classes. They're intended for you to get caught up with whatever you need to get caught up with. Your instructors are available, resources are available, school's open. It's not like nobody's there or anything like that. That's the whole idea behind the Student Success Week. In fact, to even go a little deeper down that rabbit hole, the main focus of the Student Success Week is for us as a college to help the students, the individual students, be successful with the program. So it's intended for us to identify those students that are struggling, identify their needs, and then address those needs as best as we can. On top of that too, it's not just like you and your instructors in a room all by yourself and there's nobody else around. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes at NBCC. There is so much support for students and staff. There's so much support for programs. You can leverage all of that as an NBCC student. So if you want to take advantage of, we'll say like a student's advisor or someone that, you know, you're having a hard time focusing, you're at home and things just aren't going that well because, you know, there's too much noise or whatever it might be, you can just reach out to them or me for that fact, or your instructors or whoever, and say, this is the problem, you know, I can't concentrate on work at home when I'm doing that or whatever. I can't get to school because my car's all jacked up and I don't have money for a new one. So just, it's a two-way street. Just make sure you communicate with your instructors as well too. And if you need that help, really don't be afraid to reach out and ask for that help. It's there for a reason. It's not there just because we want to be all, you know, feeling good about ourselves. It's for you guys as students. I'm sorry, I just noticed that Isaac has asked another question that I didn't see right now. So if I'm signed up for the Automotive Service Technician, is that the pre-employment that you're talking about? Yes. So Automotive Service Technician, pre-employment. So it's pretty much the same thing. If you're signed up for Automotive Technology, it's still pre-employment. And pre-employment is a term that we use just to distinguish any program that is intended to educate a student prior to entering the workforce versus professional part-time learning. So if you just went in, I don't know, you want to learn how to be a harbor pilot, but you were a lobster fisherman for years, well then, you know, you're already an established, you know, tradesperson. You're just upgrading. That's what we talk about when we talk about professional part-time learning or anything like that, or part-time learning. Pre-employment is always those year-long programs that, you know, you kind of come into with no experience and you come out of with everything you need.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt.
No
we'll
problem.
give it another 30 seconds or so for any last minute questions. Feel free to type those in or unmute yourself. But otherwise, thank you very much, everyone, for joining tonight. As Matt said, there are instructors and staff that are here to help you at NBCC. So reach out before you arrive in September if you have any questions. But then also once you're on campus, don't hesitate to ask for anything when you think you need something or you need some help. So thanks again for joining tonight. We're really excited to welcome you in September. Thank you, Matt, for the presentation. And take care, everyone.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Look forward to seeing you.
Bye.